research, which you may or may not be familiar with, depending on how much you heard about it. But the purpose of this meeting is to bring in some new people from across the series and really disseminate information about what this thing is and hopefully provide more context, and then talk about how to become part of this committee and how to help implement research through this infrastructure. So without further ado, I will share my screen and get into the presentation. Okay, everyone can see this okay? Great. So thank you everybody for being here. Today we'll be talking about our infrastructure for collaborative research, or ICR. And this meeting will be recorded so that it can be distributed to any individuals who were not able to make it today. So just keep that in mind. And we will have plenty of time for discussion and questions at the end as well. The first question I think is really important to address is, when we're talking about the ICR, what are we actually talking about? It is, in essence, as the name would imply, an infrastructure for collaborative autism research. But we know that it can get kind of confusing as we start talking about different pieces and throwing around terms like data repository and REDCap. So to simplify it, we could really think of the ICR as an umbrella that has multiple pieces under it. So it has the proposal, application, and review process, data collection and download, and data dissemination through things like dashboards. These are all different but related pieces, and they all fall under the ICR umbrella. And another important question I think that's important to understand is what the motivation behind RFP building this project has been, and why it's beneficial to go through this whole process. I think really a large selling point for this infrastructure initially was to provide something that can facilitate collaboration, to really remove some of the red tape around doing collaborations in research, and to help us all focus on the important part, which is implementing the research, collecting the data, and disseminating that data to help further the field of autism research. And so we'll go into more detail about the steps we have taken to do that later in this presentation. But on the slide now, you could see kind of a zoomed out view of the process or the pipeline that we have created. And it starts with research coming in the form of a proposal or an application that is then reviewed internally before studies are implemented. And there's room for collaboration in the data collection process. And then finally, data can be downloaded and disseminated through publications, through dashboards, and other means. So with that bigger picture in mind, we can zoom in a little bit to get an idea of what the model looks like. This is where I'll start describing the individual pieces that fall under the ICR umbrella in a little bit more detail. So it all starts with the request for proposal, or RFP website. This is a website that we have created to accept proposals for research and to review those proposals internally. So the idea is a researcher will submit their proposal on this website. Our reviewers will take a look at those proposals and score them. And then the approved projects will go on to have their own workspace on this website where they can share and download documents for the study. There is a forum where they can post and answer questions regarding the implementation of their research. And so this is essentially the pushing off point where we start to go into implementing that project. And another term that I want to explain a little bit more is this concept of a research package. And this is what we refer to as the IRB documents and templates, the consent templates, the measures that are used for the study, really anything that is needed to get that study launched. You can almost think of it as akin to a manual of procedures or a study protocol. But this package is really what feeds into creating the REDCap project for the study. And REDCap is essentially what is serving as the data repository for the ICR. This is where data collection happens, it's where data storage happens, and the researchers who are proposing projects to us will work with our team to implement a project through the UCLA instance of REDCap. Another important piece that interfaces with the REDCap project are the data summary dashboards. These are web pages that pull de-identified data directly from REDCap projects and display them in aggregate form, where anyone from the public can sort data according to demographics or according to individual research projects. And there is ability to take a peek at what measures have been implemented through the ICR, just for transparency and so that anyone who is interested in potentially implementing a project with us can see what has already been done and what's available. Another pathway I want to draw attention to is the pathway that data takes as it comes into and out of the REDCap infrastructure. We've done it in a bit of a unique way where instead of data collection happening at other sites and then transferring multiple times between different people, we've really set it up so data can come directly from the study participant via surveys sent out from REDCap. And that's beneficial in a few ways so that one, it's easier and less time spent going back and forth, and also just less room for error when we're handling data. And over here on the right side, you can see a few different forms that this data we collect takes. So we can house consent forms electronically through REDCap. We have a participant contact registry that participants of any study can opt into. And this will allow us to house their contact information, and they can be contacted for future studies that participate in the ICR. So it is a valuable recruitment tool. And then of course, study data, which will be housed de-identified and separate from these identifiable pieces, so that this is eventually the piece that researchers will interact with and download data from. So I know that's a lot of information, and importantly, one thing that the model doesn't really touch on is one of the most important parts of the ICR, which is the collaboration piece. So next, I want to take some time to go step by step through what collaborating with the ICR really looks like. And much like the model, it does start with the request for proposal website. This is where researchers will apply by submitting a letter of intent and a proposal. And those applications are then reviewed every 3 months. In that review process, there is opportunity to receive feedback from our reviewers as well about suggestions for implementing the project, and some expert review from people with lived experience as well. And I do want to acknowledge an important piece that this slide brings up as well, which is that there are a few different pathways that people can get involved with the ICR. There's, of course, being a researcher wanting to do research and submitting a proposal. And then there's also becoming a reviewer and helping us triage those proposals and decide which research fits the ICR model the best. So in the next couple of slides, I want to go into more detail about what does it mean to be a reviewer on the database committee, and what would that the requirements for that look like. Firstly, I want to draw attention to the tools that we have created. So reviewers in the ICR will utilize the tools that we have on the RFP website to view all of the descriptive information for the proposal in one place, and then also score that proposal based off of individual criteria. And all of this will take place on that website. And I also want to draw attention to the idea of what it would mean to be a reviewer. They would have to have a few set skills that go along with reviewing proposals, things like knowledge of how proposal review works, expertise in neurodevelopmental research, and the ability to work in a team with other reviewers. And we have also created some introductory material that will help not only reviewers, but also the applicants of research understand what type of research we are hoping to promote with this infrastructure. And in terms of time commitment, we've broken up into a few different pieces that reviewers would be responsible for. We plan to have quarterly review meetings to go over the applications that have been submitted during the previous cycle. So 4 meetings per year of about an hour per meeting to review these proposals as a group. Our monthly committee meetings take place once a month, and the structure is to discuss any logistical aspects that could be taken care of. Much like the meeting that we're having right now would be the structure. And the estimated application review time, we anticipate around 1 proposal per review cycle, or 4 proposals per year for each reviewer, and around 2 hours per proposal to come up with a meaningful response. So altogether, those commitments come around to up to 24 hours in a year of time that would be dedicated to reviewing proposals for the ICR. So with that in mind, I can go on to the next steps of what happens after a project is approved through the RFP website. And this is where we start to have to dive into some of the more logistical aspects of implementing the project. So there are data use agreements and IRB and all of these things that we know have to happen before research can start. And we have taken quite a few steps to try and limit the amount of effort that is spent on those pieces and streamline the process. So we have created data use agreement templates to be used and have worked on ways to minimize the use of those so that we aren't repeating documents with institutions that have already collaborated with us through this channel. And we have also created IRB templates and consent templates so that there's boilerplate language that researchers can just drop in, whether it be a new IRB protocol that they're working on or an existing IRB protocol that they're submitting an amendment to. It should be easy to add the ICR to that project. And the idea is that in parallel with these approvals and the logistical aspects, researchers will be working with our team to implement their project so that once those logistical aspects have been approved, the data collection is ready to go. And this will involve utilizing the suite of tools that we have created, including the project workspace and the private forum that allows for that communication. And that should help streamline the process of working with our team to create REDCap surveys and the project that will eventually be initiated to collect that data from participants. What you can see on the bottom of the screen here is a preview of what that data may look like when it has been displayed through our public dashboards. You can see there's the ability to sort this data by study, to select specific groups and group that data according to set criteria. And on these dashboards, there's information about what surveys, what measures have been implemented so that researchers can get an idea of what kind of projects have existed through this channel. And then finally, the fruits of all this effort is, of course, the data and getting to download that data, to publish on that data and distribute it. And I think this is really where we're hoping this infrastructure is going to thrive, in letting people disseminate their data to further collaborations, to further research in the autism space. I think this is really the big part of what we're trying to do with this model. And you can see a preview here of the REDCap system, how it looks, and how it's very easy straight from the dashboard to just export the data straight away so that it can be done at any point during the data collection process or once the data collection has concluded. So I want to take a moment to thank everybody for listening to our spiel on what the ICR is. And if this infrastructure has been interesting to you, we would greatly appreciate if you take a minute to fill out our survey and indicate your interest in potentially joining this committee and being a reviewer for the ICR. It's a very brief 4-question survey. The QR code is here. Oops. And I will also paste the link in the chat in just a moment. But this committee really has been invaluable to everything up to this point in building this infrastructure, and it will continue to be a very integral part of the continued success of the ICR as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for listening to our presentation. Regardless of how you end up interacting with this infrastructure, we really hope that it will do what it's meant to do and further collaborations and research in this space. If you do have any questions or want to know more about how to get involved, this email address is one that we use for ICR related communications. So please feel free to reach out to this address at any point. Myself or Jeff Roth or anyone from our team will review those emails and get back to you. And if there are questions now about any part of the infrastructure, we are happy to address those. So please do type in the chat or shout out if you would like. And I'm just going to go back to this slide so we can paste that link again.